Derek Fisher brings over 25 years of hardware, software, and cybersecurity expertise across multiple industries, including healthcare and finance. As an accomplished leader and educator, Derek has used his experience to help business partners defend software from malicious activity. His expertise encompasses cybersecurity strategy, risk management, and compliance. It has helped him lead incident response efforts while directing high-performing cybersecurity teams and effectively communicating technical concepts to diverse audiences, including executive leadership and board members. Derek joins us to discuss hiring in cyber, more specifically in application security. We also cover what it takes to be noticed and to get a job, resume reviews, and the challenge of no entry-level application security roles.
The Application Security Podcast is brought to you by Security Journey. We provide application security training for not just your developers, but for all roles in your SDLC. Learn more at securityjourney.com.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Application Security Podcast. This is Chris Romeo. I'm the CEO of DaVinci, also a general partner at Curve Ventures, and an AppSec aficionado. Joined, as always, by my good friend, Robert. Hey, Robert.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, Robert Hurlbut. I'm a principal application security architect and threat modeling lead at Acquia, and as always, glad to be here.
Yeah, we're joined by someone who's been on the podcast before, Derek Fisher. Derek joined us first time in March 2023 when he was on the circuit, I guess, talking about his book, the Application Security Handbook, which is still part of my recommended reading list. So, Derek, it's great to have you back again with us on the show. And because we've already heard your security origin story, we're going to go to our decision tree. We're going to go down the other path in the decision tree. And I'm going to ask you, what do you like to do that gets you away from computers and technology?
Thanks for having me back on. I really appreciate it. So for me, I do some gardening, and in fact, usually my previous house I had a nice in-ground garden. I wasn't doing it for sustenance. It was more just therapeutic, getting out there, weeding, seeing things grow. That was always cool. And the house I just recently moved into, there's some space for me to put one in ground, but it's not ideal. So I had to do kind of the raised beds on the deck. And it's still, again, it's not quite the same thing, but it's getting out there and being able to check on the progress of how things are growing and how they're doing. It's always, again, kind of therapeutic. I do a run. I get outside, try to get out for runs a couple times a week. I just did a trail run in Vermont about 2 weeks ago, or 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a 10 mile through the woods, and it was, a lot of fun. I'm getting older, so it hurts a little more, and I'm not as fast as I probably should be, but it's good to just be able to get out and just see, nature. So that gets me away from the desk. But of course, as soon as I'm done, I'm right back at my desk. So, but at least I carve out that time to get out and do something different. So
yeah. So what's your favorite thing to grow?
Tomatoes are always an easy one to do. Squash is usually pretty easy. Strawberries are fun, but I don't have enough plants to really make a big difference. Like I might get a couple strawberries a day, which isn't awful. But usually tomatoes, squash, peppers, hot peppers. Actually, lettuce is pretty easy too. Like any kind of leaf, salad type lettuce, that's pretty easy. Some things can be picky, finicky and easy to kill. So I try to avoid those things. So I tried to grow corn once, and that actually, we ate it, and then it was okay. It didn't look anything like the stuff you would get at the store, but it was edible. So
yeah, that's a great hobby. So
yeah.
It's something I'm getting into now as well. And I've done a little bit of gardening as well, kind of throughout my life. And I love to grow tomatoes. My favorite story growing tomatoes, though, is I got a whole bunch of good dirt, put it on the side of our house, like really rich, not the red clay we're known for here in North Carolina, but the the really good black dirt that's got all those nutrients in it. And I didn't know how to plant. So it turns out I double planted from existing plants that I got at the
Oh,
store, and they grew like crazy. And so I had like every day, I had like multiple beautiful tomatoes that were ripe all throughout the summer. You could go out and pick 2 or 3 a day.
right.
I'm like, and I thought I might have and apparently over planting just happened to work for me. It didn't fight for resources or anything. So I was,
Yeah.
but that's a great, I enjoy the same thing you're describing there. There's something therapeutic about like going outside, digging in the dirt, just caring for things like that is just, I don't know. It's different than what we do all day long. To be
Yeah.
able to like not be looking at a screen is such a
Yeah.
great thing.
I think it's good to just get some dirt on your hands and do something manual, to feel like you're doing, something beneficial there. So, but I always like the joke I've always heard was that, you spend, whatever, hundreds of dollars on, building this garden to save yourself 50 cents at the grocery store. It's like, look, I grew a tomato and it only cost me, $100 or something, for the, between the dirt and the raised bed and the water and so you could have just went down to the grocery store and got one for, $1 or something like that. But, that's not the point. So,
Yeah. As you said, it's the therapeutic value
yeah,
of
yeah,
getting outside, getting some fresh air and moving around some and
yeah,
not just
yeah,
sitting still,
right.
like we do often too much in our day-to-day
Yeah,
jobs. So I think the first place we want to go here, and there's a couple different threads in our conversation that we're gonna go after here. But I'm curious to get your take as a place to start on reasons why we can't fill the cybersecurity jobs that are out there. And I just want to preface this and get your take on this as well. It seems like there's two schools of thought in cybersecurity. There are those that say we have a 2 to 5 to 100 million. Okay, I'm exaggerating. 2 to 5 million job deficiency. We just don't have the people to do this. And then there's this faction now on the other side of the equation saying we have plenty of jobs. There's not we have plenty of people. That's not the problem. And so now we've got this tension, and it's like, now who do we believe? Do we believe that there's a giant deficiency, or do we believe that there isn't one? So let's start there. Like, what's your take on that as you look across our industry?
yeah. And I think it's like most things that are, I don't want to say controversial, but where people have opinions, strong opinions, you can almost always find statistics or numbers that are going to back up that opinion. And before the podcast, I was searching around for some statistics on this and where kind of the industry is. And the U.S. Labor Department says that there's going to be 200,000 job openings, unfillable job openings in cybersecurity over the next 5-10 years or something like that. And I know we've also heard those numbers of 1 million or 2 million open positions, and I think it really, again, it depends. I think you're going to be able to find metrics and numbers that are going to back up your opinion or your theory on this. And at the same time, there's 100% employment, meaning that there's people, and again, this was one of the statistics that I found where it said 100% employment, meaning that there are no, anybody that wants to find anybody that there's no unfilled roles, right? Or I'm sorry, that there's no roles that that there aren't people for, right? And so, but when you get out there and you talk to people in this industry or trying to get into this industry, you see firsthand that it's not like that. I mean, there are a lot of people that are trying to get into these roles. I was at WESIS back in May in Nashville, the Women in Cybersecurity conference, and I volunteered there past 2 years and was doing resume reviews and just talking to people that were coming in and getting their experience on trying to find a job, and a lot of them have been just applying to a lot of positions, and they think there's something wrong with their resume, and they think there's something wrong with them. Because I keep hearing that there's tons of jobs out there, but they can't get in. Same thing. I was at Secure World here in Philadelphia shortly after WESIS, and was on a panel there talking about talking about, this exact topic. And, just hearing from some of the audience members about their experience as well. I mean, people that have been in the industry and are still struggling to find jobs, as well as the people that are, entry level trying to get in. It's like, okay, well, if we have, all these open positions that can't be filled, or there's not enough people to fill them, something doesn't add up, and yeah, it's definitely, I was talking to somebody the other day about how, like, I don't envy people looking for work right now in cybersecurity, because it's like, it's not an easy task. So,
Yeah, and I think we need to stop talking about everybody across our industry, meaning all these people that write articles and do studies. They always come to a conclusion of like there's this many open positions, but nobody ever breaks it down, because a lot of those positions, if they are out there, are for mid to senior level people.
right,
Which, to your point, mid to senior level people are 100%. I'll even go further. Like, I can't think of anybody who doesn't have a job right now who wants one in my
right,
network of people that I know. And I
right,
think you guys are probably, it seems like across our industry, but these are mid to senior level people. And
right,
so everybody always talks about, well, there's, let's just say there's 500,000 unfilled positions. How many of those are mid to senior level, though?
right,
Because mid to senior level, the only way we can get more of those is we have to grow them. We can't
right,
just, you can't just say, poof, we now have more mid-level people. That you have to take more entry-level people and you have to provide them a pathway to grow them, to mentor them so that they can become those mid to high level roles. And I think that's part of the challenge in our industry right now is we're so focused on mid to high level, and we just don't focus enough on growing people up in our industry.
yeah. I'd also be curious about what those roles are. Are they in the information security space? Are they in GRC? Are they penetration testers? Are they SOC analysts? Are they AppSec people? Cloud security. I mean, that's the other question that I get often is people say, "Hey, I just want to get into cybersecurity." It's like, well, you know, it's cybersecurity it's like saying I want to get into engineering. It's like, okay, where's your interest? Because there's a ton of different, ways to be in engineering or be in cybersecurity. And so, you don't often see that breakdown either of like the bulk of these roles that are going unfilled are in this, category or this type of position. But I think you're absolutely right in the sense that a lot of those roles are going to be, or likely to be those mid to senior level positions that a lot of, and that kind of probably leads into what we'll talk about in a bit, but the need to get people that have a certain level of experience and knowledge and, education and all that other stuff to fill in these roles. So,
With that in mind, I mean, how are people getting into cyber and AppSec? And what are the earlier parts of their career path that maybe have led them to security? I know we all have different stories of how we got here, but what are you seeing, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think if you look at, I often try to look at parallel industries or parallel uh, lines of work. And same thing with software engineering. If you come out of college with a computer science degree, that doesn't necessarily guarantee you that you're going to turn around graduation day and have a job. For some people, that may work out that way. For some other people, it may not. You may not get into a role right away, and I think that's another industry that's you're seeing a lot of change in software development, just the way that it's being done, and the needs of those that are getting hired. So I think with cybersecurity, you have people that are coming out of school. Number one, there now some colleges are changing this, but there is not a computer science security degree. There's not a security undergraduate degree. Um, there's programs that are integrated with computer science or with CIS or other types of technology degrees that kind of bolt on that security. Like, we're going to give you some I teach at Temple University. The course I teach is software security. It is an elective that is part of a broader school. And so until we get to a point where, security is and I'm not advocating for this because this is a whole nother, topic, but until we get to a point where, you're coming out of college with a cybersecurity degree, then, you're even then you're still not guaranteed to get in, right? I think it comes down to having that experience, and that experience can come in multiple different ways. My way of getting into cybersecurity was I was a software engineer and then got into AppSec. A lot of other people, when you hear their origin story, it wasn't I graduated college and landed a job as a security architect. It just doesn't happen, right? You're working your way up usually as an analyst and then moving your way up, the ranks, unless you come in from a different discipline that has some kind of technology background. So, what I've been trying to talk to other people about in terms of getting into cybersecurity, it's take a job, right? And I don't mean a job in security. I mean, if it's there, then take it, but take a help desk job, right? If you're coming out of school, take a help desk job, take some type of an IT position, or if you're getting into software engineering, if you're getting into network engineering, if you're getting into any one of those parallel disciplines, you're going to get that background. You're going to be able to leverage your security knowledge that you have to be able to build that and show in the company that you're in that, hey, I do have this knowledge, and then that hopefully transfers, into a full-time role. But I don't think anybody has like the blueprint, right? I don't think any of us have like, here is your path to get into cyber.
Guaranteed. The guaranteed path.
Yeah. I mean, again, I look at parallel, types of disciplines. Software engineering, there is kind of a blueprint for that, right? There's, there's a blueprint for getting into a software engineering job, getting into an operational job, getting into IT. Like there are kind of blueprints for that, that generally work. But I'm not aware of one in security. So somebody can prove me wrong, but I'm not aware of one.
I mean, if anything, it's the patterns kind of the try to get to the SOC.
Right.
And then if you can but that's like the help desk as well. But if you can get to the SOC, maybe you can then get to somewhere else in the cybersecurity department because you're becoming a known quantity. And it's funny, the example you shared, I had the same conversation with a recent grad in just the last few months where I said the same thing. I said, get in the door, outwork everybody around. Don't just go in and hang out and think this is a fun place to work. Get in the door, doing whatever they'll let you in to do, whether it's help desk, whether it's IT, something IT related, whether it's working in the SOC as a level 1 analyst, covering the, 2 a.m. to 9 a.m. shift or whatever. But go in there, outwork everybody, and they will move you. You will begin to make your way through the ranks. If you go in and just show up, then you're on your own. I can't help you if you're not motivated to be successful.
Right.
But there is a pathway in. It's not as easy as everybody seems to think.
Yeah, there's not a it's not pushing on an open door, right? It's you have to be creative, you have to be ready to work and work hard and show that you have the desire. I think a lot of security comes down to passion and desire. Like, you have to want to do this. It's not like something like, I just want to get into security because, the money or it's cool or whatever the case is. Like you have to kind of want to do this, and it can't just be because you think this is where you want to be. Which is, oftentimes when I talk to people and they say, I just want to get into cyber, it's like, that kind of, for me, that always puts the spidey sense up a little bit where it's like, okay, why? Like, what is your reason for getting into this? Is it because you've been coached, by somebody that this is the path to go? You think there's, glory and fame and all that stuff in it. I don't know. But, when somebody just says, I want to get in, it does, there can be, but, it's, it's again the question of I just want to get into cyber. It's like, okay, where's your interest? Why do you want to do this? Where though you need to answer those questions before you can really choose your adventure here. So
Reminds me of something about Billy the Kid. Like, do you want to be famous or do you want to be infamous?
yeah, luckily
Well,
you
you
can
could,
do either one in security, right? You guys.
you can, yeah. And it's, I had a similar or I have a similar conversation path. My favorite question to ask people when they say, "Oh, I want to get into cyber." Oh yeah, why? Why do you want to do that? I've heard too many times because you make a lot of money. I'm like, come on, like you have to think this through. Don't do anything because you make a lot of money, because you will hate your life. The people that go to law school or they go to medical school because, well, these jobs make a lot of money. And then these are the stories you hear about somebody who spends 1 week working in the law and goes, I hate this. And then they owe 220 billion to some university somewhere because they ran up a bunch of debt to take on something that they don't even really love to do. And so that's my ultimate career counseling thing that I
Right,
tell people is like, what would you do if money didn't matter?
right,
Like, what if you didn't need money, what would you do with your hours every day? What would you go do? And that's where you find your passion, and that's where you start to unlock what you should be doing. Don't do anything for the money. Yes, we need money to eat. We need money to live in our society, 100%. But if you make your life plan based on something you think is going to make the most money, I hate to break it to you, but you're not going to be very happy. You're going to be
right,
part of the, oh gosh, it's Monday. Thank you, it's Friday, right?
right,
Like that's going to be your mindset, and it's just a
right.
terrible place to live. Like, life is way too interesting to be caught in something that you hate
Yep.
doing. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, you mentioned resume reviews. I'm always curious. I've never participated in a resume review, but I love to read resumes. I love to analyze them in the hiring process. And so, what do you see? What have you seen in these experiences from people of like, what are they doing wrong? How do you recommend they fix them? Like, give us some ideas about some of the stuff you see.
I don't know. And I mean, I was thinking about this recently. I don't know what the answer is here because I see resumes that when these early entry level people come up and they say, here's my resume, tell me what's wrong with it. And I look at it and it's like, it's a, it's a template, and it has all the things you would expect to see for an entry level person. And it shows, certificates that you took, the projects that you worked on, what you did in school, maybe some, volunteer work and things like that. I mean, and I'm talking about entry level resumes. Um, and in those cases, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the right answer is here because you have people that are trying to beat a system, right? They're trying because now you have these, if you ever go out on LinkedIn, you see a job that just opened 2 hours ago and there's 400 applicants to it. You're like, what the hell? Like there's no way that there's that, and it's always some kind of niche, position. Not all, I'm making it up here, but I mean, that is actually the case. But I mean, it could be a niche position where you're like, there's no way there's 400 people in this area that's qualified for this role. Um, so you have this on the one side, you have these positions that are opening up and they get flooded with applicants. And then on the other side, you have the applicants that are trying to not be weeded out by the automation. So the questions that I often get about the resumes are, I mean, I've had this question bluntly asked, how do I beat the automation with this resume? I don't know. If I don't know. If I knew that, I'd create a class for that because apparently that's what everyone's trying to do. Um, but oftentimes, the advice that I do try to give people is you need to really tell, and it's hard to do this on a resume, but you need to tell a story. And I'll never forget when I was at WESIS back in May, one of the women that sat down gave me her resume, and she, I said, okay, as I'm looking through it, I said, tell me who you are, tell me about your, background. She had a phenomenal background and experience. And I mean, just listening to her talk was like, how could you possibly be struggling to get a job? Like, and I even told her, I said, I would like to work for you because what she had accomplished in her time and the different work that she had been involved in, um, was just stunning to me. But at the same time, it's like, that doesn't come across, and I'm highlighting this because I think the hiring companies are really doing a disservice by not being able to really get to those people. But I get the pain, of you open up a position and you're getting flooded with, hundreds of applicants. It's like you can't possibly go through all those resumes and profiles. You have to add some type of automation to that. And so I see why we're in this arms race. But I bring up that example because it really shows how we're missing out on some extremely talented people, who can't seem to get through, the automated systems.
Yeah. The last, 5, 7 years, all the hiring I've done has been for my various startups. And so smaller scale, but I guess I still used a little bit of filtering though, even within the tools to try to help me, if I had 20 resumes. I still read all 20 though, just because I like the personal touch of reading people's resumes and trying to see, is there something I see here that maybe they're just not great at communicating what they did, but there's some cool things I want to know more about.
Right.
I think when I think about advice I've given people over the years about resumes, I think one of the most important things is please be truthful
Yep.
about the things that you've done. Don't
Yep.
lie, because I'll
Yep.
sniff it out. Like, I'm a trained investigator. I spent a few years working with a bunch of ex FBI people in a computer crime unit back in the late 90s. They taught us computer nerds how to investigate. And like, as soon as I look at your resume, I'm asking questions. Sometimes I don't even know what the thing is, but I'm going to ask you a question about it because I want to know if it's real and if you can explain it to me.
Right.
But, and I remember one time I caught somebody, this is a long time ago. Guy had everything on his resume. You can imagine. It was a kitchen sink resume. Like, there's no way everybody knows all of these things. Like, so I just started asking him questions about various things, and he just started to like stammer and not be able to get anything out. And like, this guy had just filled out a resume with every buzzword that existed in the industry to try to get through. And so there's danger in trying to beat the system by modifying your resume for what you think the system wants if you can't back it up.
Right.
It's about backing it up.
Yeah, adding every keyword, everything that you could find just to make sure you get in front. But then if you can't, like you said, that's not the way to do it necessarily.
Yeah.
It gets you to just so far. It gets you just so far.
Right.
Makes you realize we need a better system.
Yeah.
The system that we have now is broken. That's what you just led me to, Derek.
And I mean, I think about this often, because I feel like, for us that have been in this space for a while, and I've been a hiring manager. I've gone through like resumes for positions and stuff like that. And, of course, doing the resume reviews and talking to, students and trying to help them. And I think we do kind of owe it to the ones coming in to help shepherd them into this, right? Because we do need help, right? We do need to get more people into this, into this space. And so I do think about this problem often, and it's broke. I hate to say it, but I think it's broke. I mean, I just the fact that once you get locked into one of the, as I keep saying, the arms race, once you get locked into that, that's really hard to unravel because you're creating these learned behaviors on the applicant side saying, I have to try to write my resume, to your point, Chris, I have to write my resume, with these words because that's what's going to get somebody's attention. and then hopefully, they'll read my resume, and then hopefully I'll get to an interview. And then, again, on the other side, where it's just like, there's no way I can go through hundreds of, resumes. I mean, as a hiring manager in a organization, HR, there's so many levels of gates before it actually even gets to, my desk, where, there's automation that cuts out, let's say, and I'm making these numbers up, but let's say it cuts out 80%. Then it gets to, HR, and they cut out maybe, 80% of that. And then you end up with 5 to 10 resumes on your desk, right? Well, what happens to the other, 200 that didn't make it through?
Yeah.
I never see those. So,
Yeah, and
you know,
I want to put a plug in here just for folks listening that might be looking for a job. There's a lot of value in the referral network.
Yeah.
And so when I think about all the people I've hired in the last 10 years, I don't know, maybe half of them were by way of referral from
Yep.
other people that I trusted, that sent me somebody and said, hey, you should take a look at this person. They weren't a good fit for what I was looking for, or there's somebody I know from this meetup or whatever. And so I know going to these meetups and trying to be a part of the community can be a really difficult thing in the beginning, because you don't know anybody and you're like, God, nobody wants to talk to me. But being in those communities, getting to know people, is one of the ways you circumvent the auto parsing system of resume reviews that try to cut people out. Because if you have a connection to somebody, if you have a connection, like if you're trying to get a job in a company, in the team that I'm running, if you know somebody who knows me and they put a word in, now I can say, as somebody on the other side of that, like I'm very careful with who I will vouch for. Like I don't
Right.
vouch for people I don't know, and because my reputation is attached to the candidate. But
Exactly.
I've recommended people in the past as well. And so just a plug for, there is value in getting into the community, being a part of the community, getting to the meetups, being involved, and just getting to know people, because you never know how an opportunity may be presented. And somebody may think of you because they know you. Oh, I know this person from this meetup that I see like them once a month. They're always really enthusiastic about this topic. We should talk to them about that.
Right.
That happens more than you would imagine. Just it never gets publicized because everybody knows about the resume challenge of trying to get through the automated system. We don't talk very often about the referral and the connection networks that open up a lot of doors for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, it's building that network of people who then know people who then know people. You're creating that, what is it, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah. So it's like, when you have people that, like you said, can vouch for you, or, they know something's coming up and they just had a conversation with you, or, those things do matter. And I think that's a way to get around the automation, right? If you know somebody that can connect you to somebody, that's worth its gold, weight in gold.
So I would say, that's one way to stand out, I think, for a candidate. But are there some other ways for candidates to stand out?
So I think I'll go down this, the dirty certificate word here, certification. I think when you see a lot of these entry level positions that just have acronym soup on it, and for certifications, and to me, like I often called, and this is going to sound really bad, but I often call BS on it, because it's like, okay, if you don't have any experience, but you have 6 certifications, in the past 6 months, like that's good for you. But I don't, I think I'm not poo-pooing certifications, right? I think, they definitely show that you have some knowledge and basic understanding of the material that, that the certification pertains to, but it doesn't prove that you have experience. And it often, I think many applicants feel like, I just need these certifications in order to get that job. And I think this does kind of come back to, those key words in that automation that's like going to say, hey, if you're looking for, this if you're looking for a SOC analyst role, you need, these two, certifications or whatever the case is. If you're, going into a AppSec role, they want you to have a CSSLP or something, whatever. There's going to be job requirements, and that's a whole nother topic, on like how we build out these job descriptions and requirements. But I think, we have these requirements around these roles. We say that, well, this role requires XYZ. And so the entry level individuals that are trying to get into those roles say, well, it says I need I'm seeing a pattern that says I need these certifications, so I'm going to go get them. I don't think that really does anybody a service. It's often costly to chase those certifications. And it doesn't really prove much of anything, to be honest.
We got to blame the hiring companies though, right?
Yeah.
Because if you see a job post that says that you should have a CISSP and 10 years experience to become a level 1 SOC analyst, the inflation of requirements is the fault of all of the companies across our industry that are doing that. And I want to offer a counterpoint on the certification side. And it's funny because I've been debating whether I'm going to relinquish my CISSP and CSSLP at this point in my career. One thing that I do like when I have a candidate for an entry-level role that has a certification, because for me that gives me a bit of some assurance that a candidate has chased a goal, driven through, executed, and done it. Same thing with a bachelor's degree in something. I don't even really care as much if it's in computer science versus something else versus music versus whatever. Like what does a bachelor's degree really give us? It gives you hopefully a well-rounded perspective on a number of different topics, but it also shows you can show up, take tests, and do something for 4 years in a row. Right.
Yeah. So you can apply yourself to something.
You can apply something yourself to something. And so that I think of the same thing like certification. I'm not super happy to see, nor do I think it's necessary for an entry level candidate to have 6 certifications in different things. But I like to see some step forward, because one of the things I'm looking for in a candidate at any level is, are they a lifelong learner? My favorite question to ask in interviews: what's the last book you read? Or what's the book you're reading right now? And you are not going to be shocked how many times I've heard people say, I don't like to read. I don't read books. I read a book 10 years ago in school. Okay. In my mind, the interview's now over, because you're somebody who's going to require too much of my attention. I don't want to hire people that need all my attention. That's why I'm hiring you to go do this job. I need you to be able to research and figure it out. Sure, you can come to me later in the process and you're like, okay, I've tried everything I can think of here. Give me an idea of something to shake this loose. But you can't come back to me and ask me about something I read in a book, because you didn't want to go do the research to it. And so I don't know. That's, I guess, the world according to Chris is what just happened here. That was a new segment.
But have you ever made a decision based on somebody having or not having a certificate or a certification in something?
No, I've never made certifications a criteria of any of the places. And I hired some people at Cisco years and years ago. I hired a lot of people, and I hired 30 in my first startup and a few in my second startup. So certification for me, it's never been like a cutoff point.
Right.
And I wouldn't recommend making it a cutoff point where you're like, oh, if you don't have CISSP, you can't do this job. Well,
right.
I don't think that's the truth.
Yeah. And that's the reason I asked that question, because I couldn't tell you the last, half dozen people that I hired. I couldn't tell you whether they had certification or not. Right. Because I'm not basing my decision on that. Right. I mean, if you got it, great. That's great. To your point, and it proves that you can focus on something, for a period of time and get it done. It's not, I don't think it's a game changer in the sense that you're going to come in a superstar because you have this certification or that certification.
Yeah.
Getting my CISSP didn't fundamentally change what I knew and how I worked. Didn't change much, right? It just showed that I got it.
For me, now granted, I got mine in 1999. It's a long time ago. It was a it was a good foundational set of knowledge at the time
Yep.
that I look back and say I didn't necessarily use it all, but there were foundational pieces of that allowed me to be ready to take the next steps in my career so that I wasn't completely clueless when more senior security people started talking about something. I knew some of the basics that I could at least follow the conversation, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, it shouldn't be something that's mandatory and because people can come from different levels of experience. You can get experience, you know, someone with 10 years experience doing a job versus somebody with a certification. I mean, we know which way we're going to land if we have to choose between those two candidates.
Right.
1 year experience in a CISSP versus 10 years experience.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
pretty easy answer to take. So,
Right. Right.
let's see, Derek. Let's do one more question here, and I'm curious because I know you teach in the academic world, and so what's the value from your perspective of a cybersecurity bachelor's? I know we talked about it a little bit already. Um, I'm just curious, like, do you see job requirements that have a cybersecurity bachelor requirement, that specific discipline?
I haven't seen that. And like I said, I think there's been graduate level cybersecurity, programs that have been out there. I I mean, I could be totally way off here, but I have not seen a bachelor's, an undergraduate one. Maybe they do exist, and I just haven't looked at it. But again, I know that I mean, I have a master's in cybersecurity. But it's basically a series of courses that are, you know, geared to help you understand basically to prepare you for the CISSP, right? It's a broad set of topics that are going to get you, um, a mile wide, but an inch deep in most of it, but you'll go deep on some things. But so, and I just to kind of go back to the entry level question here to kind of highlight this is that a lot of students when they come out of school with their, let's say it's computer science, they get a couple certs, they say they still can't land a job, so they go to get a graduate degree in cybersecurity, and it's like, man, that's that, and again, you're going to come out now with a graduate degree, couple certs, and still no experience, and so um, I really, I hope that as an industry that we start to take a look at the way, the requirements that we have around these positions. Um, there's plenty of people, and we know this to be a fact. There are plenty of people out there that have zero education, not education, but I mean, like zero traditional bachelor's or graduate degrees that are
Absolutely.
superstars when it comes to security.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, just getting through that. Same thing with getting a computer science degree isn't going to make you a superstar software engineer, right? You could suck at it. And so I think we put a lot of requirements around what we think we need, because to be honest, like as a hiring manager, now, if I was hiring for my own company, it'd be a little different. But when you're a hiring manager in an enterprise, you're given a template. Here's the job description. What are you looking for? You're looking for this individual. Well, here's the pay range. Here's the type of people that we're looking for. Your organization may actually have requirements around. Well, they have to have they have to have a bachelor's
Yeah.
degree. Anybody coming into the door, for a technical role has to have a bachelor's degree. And you're already starting from that platform. Um, but we know that in cybersecurity, your background or your day-to-day experience, although we are technical and a lot of the things we work with is technical, but you have to think outside the box, right? You have to think about things that, you have to think how the system's going to break. You have to think about how somebody's going to try to break it. Um, yes, that requires some technical ability, but that also requires some creativity, right? And that isn't often, in fact, I would argue that that's rarely ever taught, in school anymore, especially in a technical degree. You're taught, here's how you do X, Y, Z, here's how you execute, this, and um, you're really confined to like the framework that for that particular discipline. So I as much as I think that getting more people exposed to cybersecurity and making that as part of these degree programs is helpful. I really think it comes down to the requirements that we make around these positions that say, here are the things that we, again, it's all a template. You need an entry level SOC analyst. Well, here's the certifications that we need. Here's you need a bachelor's degree. You need this, you need that. Um, there's plenty of jokes out there too about people that, you require X amount of years experience in this language, 5 years experience in this language, and the language has only existed for 2 years. That's just indicative of how we create these requirements where it's like,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of thought into it,
That's just lazy work behind the scenes is what that is. And yeah, I remember seeing one of those examples and it was pretty well publicized, but
Yep.
and the funny thing is I think the original story, it was the author of the framework who was interviewing for the job.
Yep. Yeah.
And they're like, I don't have 5 years of experience.
I don't have the experience for the thing
and
I
they're
built.
Yeah.
I built it from scratch, but it's only
Right.
existed for 3.5 years, not 5
Right.
years. So nobody
I'm
can
just-
have 5.
I'm
on there.
disqualified from working on it.
Yeah. So two thoughts that Derek, I want to react to or answer one of the things I think, or a point about one of the things you said. I think one of the challenges, like we've constantly tried to make a cybersecurity degree by throwing a bunch of stuff into a pot and just stirring it up. Nobody's ever, that I'm aware of, gone back to the drawing board and said, let's build a cybersecurity degree from scratch with no constraints on computer science, on CIS, on IT related things, on certifications. Let's just it's like Tesla. When Tesla made their first car, they threw away everything that people knew about cars and said, we're going to build a new car from scratch. And we're not going to use any of the old designs. We're going to start from scratch. I feel like that's what needs to happen with a cybersecurity university degree. Throw everything away, go to a whiteboard and create something from scratch that's based on the skills that people like us as practitioners know you need to have to be successful in various tracks, whether it's IT governance, whether it's AppSec, whether it's pen testing, whether it's forensics and incident response. Like we could layer all of those things and say practical skills for each of these stacks. And then how do you get a well-rounded view of all of those stacks in a cybersecurity degree? By doing a pen testing class and doing a forensics class that has incident response, and then doing 2 classes on AppSec and secure coding and a threat modeling class, just because we have to throw that in this curriculum. And, but everybody just says, well, what can we add to our CS degree to make it feel like it has a cybersecurity t-shirt that it can wear out in public? And then the other thing on the graduate degree, I've had this conversation with a couple of different young folks that I've worked with and also just tried to advise. And everybody wants to go get a graduate degree. And a lot of them want to do it they want to go right from their bachelor's degree to their master's degree. And my problem with this is you don't know anything yet. And I don't mean to be mean, but you just know a bunch of book facts.
Right.
And one of the things is I went back and got a master's later in life after working for a number of years. But I think what people would be able to do is you'd be able to interpret what the teacher's saying if you have real world experience. Because then when the teacher says, well, this is how it is, you can raise your hand and be like,
actually,
I work at a company and it's not like that at all.
Right.
That's something that they said that used to be 20 years ago. Things were like that. But when you go from directly from finishing your bachelor's directly into your master's degree, you don't have any life experience to know what I should believe and what I shouldn't believe from what these folks are saying. So I don't know. We got to solve this university problem. So somebody start a working committee or subgroup or something. And Robert and Derek and I will show up and just pontificate for the whole hour or two.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of, the way, at least for Temple University where I teach, it's an elective. The software security course is an elective for CIS and CS students. Um, that's, I wish that was not an elective, first of all, like that it was fully integrated with the program. Like it's required for you to know data structures and how to secure, the code you're writing.
Derek, you're going to put us out of business, man. We're not going to have any AppSec work to do anymore. If you get this
I'm
dream.
sure that we'll probably have plenty of AppSec work going for it. I don't think the problems are going away anytime soon. So, but I think this comes down to how we kind of make cybersecurity very mysterious, and we make it sound like we're wizards and we're in the ivory towers and and I know that's not the reality for a lot of us. We're in the trenches, we're in the dirt, we're doing, the work. But I think there can be a perception that there's engineering and then there's cybersecurity, and they're two different things. And sometimes they, work together and sometimes they don't. And when we integrate those into blurring the lines, right? Like we talk about DevSecOps, blurring the lines and all that stuff. Then I think it really starts clicking with people that, like, okay, it's not just like building my application for resiliency and things like that. I mean, those aren't things that's not handled by the resiliency, team. That's handled by the development team, right? So I think, as we start, hopefully as we go along, here, that, we'll get more security integrated into the, undergraduate programs as like a requirement. Like you need to at least learn these things, even if it's just basic stuff, just you need to learn that these things are problems that need to be solved.
All right. Well, I think we could literally spend hours discussing the issues that we went through here. But it's now time for us to transition into the lightning round. Robert, take it away.
All right. So, 3 questions that we have. First of all, what's your most controversial opinion on application security, and why do you hold that view?
That we have too many tools in AppSec. I think there's too many tools, too many vendors. Every time you turn around, there's a new vendor solving the same problem. And I think there's definitely different areas in AppSec where we don't have enough coverage. But certainly in some spaces in AppSec, there's just there's too many vendors. And I remember reading recently about how and I mean, we know this from experience as well, is that when you're bringing in a tool, I mean, you're not buying as a security, organization, you're not buying a tool and then turning it on tomorrow and then it's running perfectly, right? It takes a year, right? I know there's some of the tools that I brought in when I was running ProdSec at VestNet. I remember having conversations like in my first week or two on the job with vendors and not even integrating that tool for like 12 to 16 months. And that's not, unusual. It's such a long lead time to get security tools in. So the idea that you're going to switch to a different tool is, that's painful. There's a very high switching cost when it comes to security. So I think, I don't know whether that's controversial or not, but at least my opinion is that we got too many stinking tools in AppSec. So
it seems like it is controversial. So you can also write to Derek at PO Box 142.
Yeah,
Just
just
kidding.
hit up my LinkedIn inbox. That always works.
There you go. All right. Well, second question is, if you could display a single message on a billboard at the RSA or Black Hat conference, what would it say?
Man, I was sitting there thinking about this the whole time too. Just trying to figure out I don't know, touch grass. I think I think we're all, we were talking about this earlier. I mean, I think we're all, we're so deep into the technology and to be honest, like the rat race of just being in this industry where it's a constant, firestorm and you're always, there's always something going on. I know that there's just days like I said earlier, I go out running, and it's just, to just go outside and just I run with music. I have friends that are like, I can't listen to music while I'm running, but like, just to put some music on, get out and see the scenery, and just unplug for a while. I think we all, for mental health reasons, for the burnout that a lot of us see. I mean, it's just you gotta unplug once in a while. So
Makes sense. So number 3, what's your top book recommendation and why do you find it valuable?
this an interview? Is this a Chris Romeo interview? You can ask me what I'm currently reading.
Yeah.
No, so I do read, and in fact, I have like 3 different books I'm reading right now. And I just kind of, it depends on what the mood is, I'm actually reading, uh, these, With the Old Breed. It's about, it's a World War II, just, um, it's not light reading, but it's just stunning to see, I think, some of the things that generation went through, and to know that these were kids, doing the things, it's, if anybody knows the book, or doesn't, it's written by a gentleman that was in the Pacific Theater in Okinawa and some other islands, and just the firsthand view of what that looks like. And it's like, every time I pick it up and read through it, it's like, this guy was 17 or 18 at the time. It's like, it's insane to think about, that. But technology wise, I am reading Cyber for Builders. That's a pretty good one, by Ross. Can't remember his last name. Ross Hurl. Anyway, Cyber for Builders by Ross.
It's like Hubelek or something
yeah,
like that.
it's H something, Herlock or
Yeah,
something like
he
that.
just wrote a new book on. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
new
Yes.
book. You're talking about the new one on like cyber startups, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think it came
Yeah.
out maybe last year. But yeah, it is somewhat recent, and that's pretty good. That's a good, even if you're not looking into getting into, doing a startup. There's a lot of good takeaways there just from people that are working in cybersecurity. That what I mentioned earlier about the whole lead time to get, a product in the door, was something that was in that book. About how it's a very different world when it comes to cybersecurity tools versus your typical IT tool. Um, and so, but anyway, there's a lot of good tidbits in there. It's not just for people that are looking for, starting a business or anything like that in cyber. It's a very, there's a lot of information in there that's very, very good. So the other thing I do have on my, I haven't said anything yet about this because I haven't cracked it open yet, but Chris Hughes, his book on effective vulnerability management, I have it sitting on my desk. I pre-ordered it and came in a little while ago. I haven't, like I said, cracked it open yet, but I do plan on getting through it at some point here. So
Excellent. Derek, what about a key takeaway or a call to action for our listeners?
So, I think talking about hiring this whole time, I think again, my recommendation for people that are trying to get into this industry is that, there is no blueprint, there is no fairy dust or magic, that'll get you in the door. It's going to take hard work. It's going to, take networking. Go to the industry events. Go to your local events if you're lucky enough to have like something like a B-Sides near you. Those are always good to go to. You don't have to go to the big ones. You don't have to go to, Black Hat and DEF CON and RSA and all that stuff because one, RSA is extremely expensive and, travel costs and all that other stuff for people that are trying to get into the business. That's hard. But I'm in the Philadelphia area. There's a ton of security stuff, that happens in this area. There's plenty of, meetups. There's plenty of events. You just need to be able to find them and go to them. Start networking. Get some people that you can rely on, and set up conversations with. A lot of times I get pinged to just have a conversation with somebody that's trying to get into the industry. And, that to me is, I think helpful. I'm not, Chris, to your earlier point, I mean, I'm not hiring right now, but for those people that are having those conversations with me, now I can put a name, a face to a name. I can put a story, behind that. If something comes up that I know that somebody is hiring, then I can, make a warm handoff there. So those relationships and really getting out there and trying to be part of the community is going to go a long way.
Mhm. Well, Derek, thank you for visiting the show a second time. And you didn't bring a book that you authored this time, but maybe for the third time around, you'll have a new book that you'll be.
I don't know if I have enough time for that,
Ah,
but I have been
that's what I
thinking about
hear.
it. It's just, yeah, it's a lot of work. So
I hear that everybody that's written a book, that's the same conclusion that they
yeah,
come with. But
yeah,
we always appreciate your insights and all the stuff that you're doing to help move our industry forward. Keep it up, and thanks for all you do. Thanks for sharing your insights with our audience here, and we look forward to another visit some point in the future.
yeah. And same to you, Chris. I mean, a lot of the stuff that, you and Robert are doing. I mean, there's, again, this is what helps people, I think, get into the industry is when we're sharing knowledge, and sharing our experience. I think that helps people really get some insight into it, and then hopefully, helps people get in. So.
Yeah, excellent.